Morbius. Okay, so first we need to talk about the lies people were told to get them to watch this movie, because unless I'm mistaken, there was absolutely no sign of Spider-Man or anything to do with Spider-Man in this movie. So all the little hints you saw dropped in trailers, like the graffiti on the wall, seeing Michael Keaton's Vulture being part of the story, that's not in here at all. It's been taken out, and it feels like Sony's ploy just to get you to watch this movie, just by associating themselves more with Spider-Man, especially having No Way Home just coming out, to just bring in the crowds to come and watch Morbius. I mean, even the end credit scenes didn't make sense whatsoever. It's actually laughable. There are two of them, and the way Sony are trying to cling to the MCU is crazy. But enough about that. Let's actually get into the main part here. Let's talk about Morbius and whether it's any good. Directed by Daniel Espinoza, Morbius stars Jared Leto as biochemist Michael Morbius, who tries to cure himself of a lifelong rare blood disease. But things don't go quite as planned, and instead he ends up infecting himself with a form of vampirism instead. So I remember when this movie was first in production, and I kept thinking this would be the perfect movie to replicate something like Dr. Jekyll or The Fly with Jeff Goldblum. And that is actually one of my favorite movies, and I love how it's very self-contained. It's a self-contained body horror movie that mainly takes place in Goldblum's lab. To me, that was a perfect blueprint for making a modern day version using this Marvel character. However, Sony had other ideas with Morbius, and it ends up feeling like another dated comic book movie, much like Venom did. Unlike with Venom though, which had that comedy element between Eddie and his symbiote, and it made the movie just a little bit more entertaining. Morbius is more straightforward, generic action. Jared Leto plays his part fine, and the special effects used to turn him into Morbius are actually well done. He definitely looks the part. The first time we see him use his powers also work well. Similar to Nightcrawler in the X-Men movies, Morbius disappears into purple clouds of smoke to move swiftly around. The problem starts when that's all you see. He disappears, reappears, and the camera slows down in a bullet time effect before Morbius then performs some sort of action. It all becomes a little bit jarring after a while, for me anyway, and again it makes it feel like a dated movie much more than it needed to be. Matt Smith was probably the standout for me. He looked as though he was enjoying his time with this role and probably had a better character within this movie. It is, however, very predictable how his character's relationship and Jared's develops throughout the film. I think by the end of the third act, maybe middle of the third act, I predicted beat for beat how things would play out. And while it's fine for some movies to be predictable because they still have that enjoyment factor for them, unfortunately Morbius didn't. For me, Morbius is much like the first Venom movie. It's got some entertaining moments and some good ideas, but unfortunately those are bogged down by a generic plot, cheesy dialogue, and messy action set pieces. Many have said that this, along with Venom, is Sony's way of creating a Sinister Six movie, but that really wouldn't make any sense, especially with Morbius, who, as I said, doesn't seem to have any contact with Spider-Man or even know who the character is, much like Eddie Brock, who seemed oblivious to the character also. After No Way Home, we realized that there are other Spider-Men in different universes, so there should be one in this world, but when there's nothing to really show that, then this all just feels like a cash grab. Throw in as much out there and seeing what works and tying it together later on. If you're a fan of the first Venom movie, you'll probably find some enjoyment out of Morbius. I did think it was better than Venom 2, which I thought was one of the worst comic book movies I've seen in years. If you didn't like the Venom movies though, then you may want to give Morbius a miss, as it's just not very good. It's not terrible, but it could have been so much better with some more imagination put into it and not trying to shove it into a wider universe. It's another example of Sony wasting Marvel characters who could have been put to much better use if they were part of the MCU, and not even that, but if there was some more creativity put behind these movies, then they wouldn't need to be part of this bigger universe, but could have been strong standalone titles. Anyway, Morbius is out now. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? And what do you think about Sony's plans for making a Craven and a Madam Web movie? Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review. Don't forget to hit the like button. If you're new here, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.